hear me all right? All right, perfect. Well, my name is Phil, and I was first introduced to the ocean when I was about this tall. And, before that, I had spent a couple years, I'd seen the ocean from, far away. I've seen it on TV, and even the safety of a beach or a boat, but I was about this tall the first time I put on a mask and snorkel and went into the ocean to see it myself. And know what you're thinking, it seems like a really big, important time in my life. I would have remembered the date or the time or the age, and I'll be honest, I didn't remember any of that stuff until I asked my mother for this picture, and she reminded me I was somewhere around 6 years old, and it was a vacation in Maui. So, while that I do not remember, I do remember for sure that I was about this tall, because it was also my first introduction to men wearing Speedos. And when you're this tall, there's no escaping the world of men wearing Speedos. So, beyond that being burned into my brain for the rest of my life, I kind of have two major memories from that first visit to the ocean. And the first one was walking around with fins on. I remember thinking it was like Donald Duck, and it was really funny, slapping against the deck of the boat. And my other memory was crying my eyes out. And not your typical just tear down the cheek crying. I mean like snot on the face and just absolutely bawling. And when I look back on that memory, this was my first snorkel. I wish I could tell you that, I put my head under the water and I saw a turtle, or I found Nemo, and I wanted to be a marine biologist, but, that is how I experienced the ocean for the first time. Right before entering the water, someone else on the boat had very excitedly mentioned that on a previous trip, someone saw a shark, and they're very excited about it, but, when you're 6 years old or so, you don't turn to a stranger and say, "Excuse me, sir, was this a big shark or a little shark? Do I need to worry about my snorkeling adventure today?" When you're 6, you let that idea just kind of bottle up inside of you. And the moment I hit the water, just tears, snot, the whole thing. So I always look back on this specific memory because I was your typical boy growing up. I was, dirt in the hair, scrapes on the knees. I was fearless and clueless, and I thought I was indestructible. So any other vacation I could have been on, I could have been in Africa or India, Yellowstone. If someone mentioned they saw a lion, a tiger, or a bear, I probably would have tried to pet those animals. But for whatever reason, just someone mentioning that somewhere in the ocean there was a shark at some point just absolutely just kind of blew my mind. It made me just so terrified. I think it's that way for a lot of people, this fear of sharks. And there's tons of theories of why people are extra scared of sharks compared to other apex or top of the food chain predators. They're all big and they're all toothy. And, your easy explanations are, one, those are all mammals and sharks are a fish, and, people are scared of fish. Another possible reason that most people come up with is the movie Jaws. And I don't know, even to this day, just that music right there can send a chill down someone's spine. There's probably a fish that just got a little nervous behind me out there. But I'll be honest, when I was growing up, with my age and my generation, Jaws was more of a novelty. It was kind of a funny thing. I know at that age I definitely had not seen Jaws yet at that point in my life. So kind of going back and trying to think about this irrational fear, I have a couple of my own personal theories that I've gone to, and I grew up in a very, very strange time that scholars now call the 90s. And this was a really, really crazy time when more and more people were getting less information from getting less and less information from the TV, from books and things like that, and getting more and more information from the television. Do we have a question? So if you haven't seen Jaws, that is totally okay, because that is my last talking about Jaws for the rest of this presentation. So if anyone has not seen Jaws, you're not going to miss out on anything else that we're talking about here. But, I, like many kids of that generation, I learned a lot of information from the TV. So I learned how to flirt from Boy Meets World. It's right here. This is still my #1 move that I use to this day. I got my all-around coolness from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And until this wonderful man entered and then left my life, my childhood hero, a lot of my just general animal knowledge and things like that came from cartoons. And I think that is the root for most children, all of us that did not see Jaws growing up. I think that is the root of our fear, that kind of irrational fear of sharks in particular. So if you go back to those apex predators, all big, all toothy, all scary in real life, lions, for example, most of us grew up with these lions. We had heroic lions, and we had caring lions, and we had cowardly lions, and so on. Same thing with tigers. When I grew up, I saw tigers that are best friends with the little boy, they're best friends with the princess. They wanted me to have a well-balanced breakfast every single morning. And then there's bears, which I think are terrifying animals, if you've ever seen one even slightly up close. Don't even get me started on bears. I mean, you grow up and they're preventing forest fires. They're raising orphans in the jungle. They're caring for each other. And they're telling corny jokes and waka-wakiing everywhere they go. So, then you have your sharks. And I had to do some extensive research just to find a couple shark examples. And do you all know Jabberjaw? I did not know Jabberjaw until, we have a couple people. I did not grow up with Jabberjaw. And Bruce, when I came up with this idea and I was telling some of my coworkers, I'm going to talk about, you don't grow up with cartoons. All of them said, well, what about Bruce the Shark from Finding Nemo? And, my response was, what about Bruce the Shark? That's not exactly the friendliest depiction of a shark out there. Now, me being the 90s kid, I grew up with street sharks. Does anyone in this audience remember street sharks at all? Okay, we have a couple of hands. If you did not grow up with street sharks, you're totally okay. You're probably not missing out on too much. But it's basically Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, same basic idea, but it's sharks, and they have rollerblades. So that was kind of my sharks growing up. This has very little to do with my talk, but I think this is absolutely amazing. When I was researching street sharks, the person that was teaching me about street sharks long before being famous is an actor you might have all actually known as well.
This is Boomer. He's got the biggest knob of them all. He's the whale shark. Say hello to that round mound of pound and his power slams. They're very deadly.
Now, it's definitely a scary world that Vin Diesel is the one teaching children shark knowledge. So whale sharks being very deadly, very scary, and so on. So I found that video of Vin Diesel by Googling and so on. And, that's an even scarier time than the 90s, because now we live in a time when people get basically all their information from the internet, which is absolutely terrifying. But on the same idea with these apex predators, I just Googled some of these animals to see what comes up. And, lions, you can't tell they're big. They're kind of, intimidating animals. But the ones that you can see their teeth, they look like most of them are either sneezing or yawning. Tigers, same thing. They do come off as very large, kind of scary animals. But they appear to be more curious than threatening. And then bears. Don't get me started on bears. If you look at these bears, if you include the teddy bear that comes up, 4 of them are waving at you. So, and I don't know what this thing is, but that also comes up if you just type in the word bear. And then you have just sharks. And just because it was all Megalodon pictures, when I did just the word shark, I did great white shark to just kind of get a better example. But look at all those teeth you see when you just look up the word shark. Not shark attack, anything like that. You just see teeth everywhere you look. And it's not a shark's fault that you always see their teeth. That is just simply how they breathe. Some of the smaller and more of the bottom-dwelling sharks and other fish, they do what we call buccal pumping. They just can actually manually suck in water and push it out their gills. But a lot of those bigger open water sharks, like whale sharks, hammerhead sharks, mako sharks, white sharks, that's how they breathe. They're what we call obligate ram ventilators. They breathe by swimming with their mouth open and letting that water kind of pass along their gills. So as long as they're going to keep breathing, they really can't do a whole lot about what that face looks like when you take a picture of them. And with very few exceptions in the animal kingdom, most of us have to live with the face we're given. So until this becomes a possibility, when people see or hear the name shark and Google the name shark, this is the face that they're going to see. And that's very troubling for these poor sharks because, we now live in a world that people are looking, we're so overstimulated with different pictures and videos all the time, and people are spending less and less time really researching deeper. We see a picture, we decide if we like it or not. You see it with Instagram, people scrolling away, deciding what they like. You see with dating apps, I've seen my friends just looking at a millisecond of looking at a person's face and deciding they never want to meet them at that moment. And if that's the kind of mentality that people have when they're seeing pictures all the time, it's even scarier if this is all they're going to see with sharks. They're going to decide very, very quickly that they do not like sharks. And, this kind of leads us so very clearly, sharks have kind of had it a little tough when it comes to the media and all kinds of things. So first off, why should you all care that sharks have a little bit of a bad public perception all around? And you know, it's been very well studied that apex predators, we'll start off just with our big sharks in general. Apex predators are very important, as scary as they might be to some people. They saw this with wolves. A lot of farmers are scared there was wolves in the area, so they got rid of those wolves, and then the coyotes took over completely. And things were much worse than before. Same thing happened in Africa with lions. A lot of the villagers wanted to get rid of those lions because they were very fearful about having lions nearby their villages, and baboons absolutely took over the town. We're not talking about the very fun Rafiki baboons. We're talking about terrifying animals just taking over the town. So beyond all the other reasons why sharks are important, I mean, we just need sharks. It's a healthy ocean is an ocean that has sharks in it. Now, why do I care? I mean, over the years, since that young person that was gripping onto a paddle or onto a boogie board for his life, I've really come to love sharks. I really do enjoy sharks. And beyond that, I work here at the aquarium, and my job is to inspire conservation of the ocean. So, 5 days a week I stand in front of large blobs of people, and I try to find that exact perfect combination of words that'll get people to care about the ocean the way that I care about it. And this is really difficult even with cute animals like penguins and otters. It's really tough to inspire conservation. So when it comes to sharks, it's really difficult. And out of all the animals in the animal kingdom that really need people to start speaking up for them, it is most definitely sharks. And I hate to change the tone too much of this presentation, but there's a study that came out almost 2 years ago now that an estimated 100 million sharks are killed every single year just by humans. And that's the combination of the shark fin trade, bycatch getting tangled up, and so on. And all around, that's a scary number for any animal, but it's extra scary when you know that statistic came out quite some time ago. And I feel that if that statistic came out for any other animal, no matter how important they are, people would be absolutely outraged. If you made up an animal, like a pandaroo, and you told people that it had no ecological benefit whatsoever, it did nothing for our environment, did nothing for the neighboring food web and so on, and you told them that 100 million of them are killed every single year, people would be starting charity concerts and so on and trying to save these poor pandaroos. But no matter what, sharks might not be that cute, but we most definitely need those sharks. So people have to find a way that they can live with sharks in our oceans and live alongside them. And when you work in conservation education, it is something that can be quite daunting and quite challenging, but I do for a fact know that it is possible because I changed over time. And really over the last 5 years of my life, completely changed the way that I looked at sharks. So I'd like to share with you just a little bit of my journey when it came to sharks, and hope that maybe some of you will get some takeaways from this as well. So I, like any young marine biology, ocean-loving person who is very fearful of sharks, went to the dark side. I liked dolphins. I wanted to study dolphins. I wanted everything, dolphins. And luckily I did very quickly kind of get over. I didn't want to do research. I fell in love with education, and as you can see, I'm thumbs upping the girl that was taking the picture right there, so kept using that from Boy Meets World days. But eventually with my path with education and marine biology, I eventually found myself working on Catalina Island, the Catalina Island Marine Institute. I was taking young students snorkeling every single day out in the water, and I have such a vivid memory of my first day. My boss, Jeff, picked me up by boat. He took me to Toyon Bay. I'm walking on the dock, and he said, "You're so lucky. We have so many leopard sharks and horned sharks in the bay right now. You're going to see so many sharks." And I was not lucky, like a lot of you growing up, seeing and feeding leopard sharks at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. When I heard horned shark and leopard sharks, I had these crazy thoughts of what's a horned shark and what's a leopard shark. And, luckily by working there at Catalina Island, I had a great opportunity to meet real sharks. And I love using that term, real sharks. So we get guests every single day at the aquarium saying, "Hey bro, where are the real sharks? I don't want to look at that shark." And every single time I send them to the horned sharks, because that's what an actual shark in our ocean really looks like. So, horned sharks, we have over 500 species of shark that are in this world. They're finding new ones every single year, and over half of them are less than 3 feet long. So your typical shark in this world is a pretty small fish all around. And just like any other fish in the ocean, horned sharks have to worry about eating their food. They also have to worry about not being eaten, so not being preyed on by larger animals in these ecosystems. And they have a wonderful defense mechanism. You might have heard the name horn shark. They have two little dorsal spines, little spines by their dorsal fin, for something that I like to refer to as the Dorito defense. So if you've ever been eating chips for a while and you're not paying attention, and that one awful Dorito just jabs you in the roof of your mouth, that's basically what they have. And, these sharks aren't swimming actively around, they're hiding during the day, and if something does happen to try to take a bite of them, the main hope is that they're going to take one bite and spit it back out. Now another shark that I got to get to know very well is the angel shark. I'm a little curious if a lot of members here, has anyone seen our angel shark here? Yeah, it's a pretty rare set. Most of our staff members don't know where it is most of the time. And that's because angel sharks are not what typically comes to mind when you hear that name of shark. They're very flat. They look a lot like a ray, hiding in the sand. Right now I'm coming up to the GoPro. That's its eyeball right there, if you can see that. And they'll basically wait sometimes for weeks, just waiting for the perfect meal to swim directly above their head so they can snap their head up, grab their food, and then go back to sitting and doing nothing again. So the life of most sharks is really that right there. It's sitting and not doing a whole lot. Since that video was not the most exciting, my personal video of an angel shark, I'll show you a quick from YouTube from one of the Shark Weeks and Shark Weeks past. So that is what it's waiting for, but Dorito defense in action, and spits it back out. So the angel shark, I will please, while you guys are exploring the aquarium, every time you visit, try to ask one of our staff or volunteers if they can find the angel shark for you, because it is very hard to find. And then I spent a whole lot of time with leopard sharks, and I absolutely love leopard sharks. I think they're what I call the gateway shark. They're just big enough for people to be like, okay, that's kind of an impressive shark right there, but also their mouths are still only about this big, so it's a good introduction shark. And one of the big things I want, if we do have any shark skeptics in this audience, is you have this wonderful gift of being a member here at the aquarium. You can come in here all the time. Do yourself a favor and just sit down and just watch a leopard shark, or even if you want a really boring show, watch a horn shark for a while and just see how they interact. A lot of you were probably at the feeding area seeing how they interact with a diver. My big takeaway over my time swimming with all these sharks was they just don't care about us. If you make a big splash, they're going to spook, they're going to go away, but in general, they just don't care at us all. I'm waiting, there we go, I love that fish that just came in and tried to steal the show right there. So, I know it's very easy for people to fall in love with these very small sharks, the real sharks, and you all do have an opportunity to see these pretty often here at the aquarium, but that still doesn't change that mostly what we were talking about when we had our fear was the big sharks. And since that time, I have had the pleasure of running into a lot of bigger sharks in my day. And the first one was a surprise visit from a mako shark, and it was absolutely wonderful. I was working summer camps at the same organization. It was a GoPro video class, when we go out with GoPros and we film stuff and we put it all together. And we thought we saw an ocean sunfish or a mola. We saw a big fin sticking out. We're all excited, and then there's an 8-foot mako shark. And all my students said, "Phil, put your hands in the water." And thanks guys, I like you too. But I did. I just put my hands down in the water, and what you can't see is my arms are in the water, so I don't see the shark at all. They're telling me it's really close, it's really close, and I'm just holding. And for how little I knew about sharks at the time, the shark, has a whole boat following it, has an arms in the water, and it just didn't care. I mean, that's really the thing, is it had no interest in what we were doing behind it. And that was a big, seeing a real shark, but most people, and seeing how little it cared about, my arms in the water. I might have had a little cut on my finger, or, anything else, and I didn't have anything to worry about. And that was pretty much the time when I got absolutely obsessed with sharks. Big sharks, little sharks. I just wanted to see them anytime I could. I recently saw the mother of all sharks. All shark fans have the dream of someday seeing a whale shark. And this year I was lucky enough to go to the Philippines in March and see one up close. And my big thing was I just wanted to see one with my eyes. It's just like whales. First time I saw a moose, I really don't get how big animals are until I see it up close and personal. And my two other goals was I wanted to swim next to one, and I was able to accomplish that. And I also, so you can see a little bit of a size, that's a smaller whale shark, a little bit of a size comparison there. I also wanted to try to take a selfie with one, and you'll see some bad attempts at it. And I really wanted to look one in the eye. I thought whale sharks being these big, mystical, magical animals, that if I looked one in the eye, I would find the meaning of life or something like that. And I'll be honest, I'm very disappointed looking in the eye of a whale shark. I don't think there's a whole lot going on up there, but completely wonderful experience. I mean, they're just these giant, 60-foot, 40-foot, vacuums, just kind of minding their business throughout the ocean. I did get that feeling that I've been kind of dying for as sharks, of that one-on-one, eye contact and that one-on-one experience. When I went to San Diego and I went free diving with some blue sharks, and to this day, the blue shark is still my favorite shark in the world, because whether you're an artist or an engineer, the shape of a blue shark's body is just absolutely gorgeous to me. And they're also a pretty big shark, when you look at them up close, and pretty large. Still not the biggest mouths, you don't have to worry too much, but they're curious. I mean, these are open water sharks. They don't run into people too often, and they will come right up to you and really get in your face. And that was the first good eyeball experience I had with the shark. Seeing one just come right up to me in the face, and you can really feel them looking back at you as you're looking at them. And all these, so as I mentioned, they'll get real close to you and come check you out. Give you a little wink there as well. And then finally, I had the wonderful recent opportunity. We've had a lot of white sharks, a lot of the sub-adults kind of hanging out in Santa Cruz, Capitola, even here in the Bay very recently. And I was very lucky enough, one of my good friends who takes a boat out all the time said, Phil, you work, I do the Project White Shark program in the auditorium, you talk about sharks to people all the time, and you have never seen a white shark. We're going to go out, and you're going to see one. And even with all these experiences with sharks, in my head, I still thought something different was going to happen when I saw a great white shark. I mean, between all the, movies I've seen and just the way that white sharks are in this different category. But what I did see in this video is of a juvenile, but I was lucky enough to see some larger ones as well. I saw the same thing I saw with every single other shark that I've ever met. They're curious, they come and check you out, they realize that you're not food, and then they just go back to living their life after that. And that was just a wonderful experience to be able to just see one up close and see that as predicted, and as I've been telling people for a very long time, they're just not interested in people at all. So really wonderful that I've been able to do all that, and I knew that I might get off talking about Vin Diesel and getting all over the place. So a couple of my major takeaways I did want everyone to see is the big sharks. I don't want you thinking they're like teddy bears and everyone should run up, but I do wish people would see them like bears. They're just another big apex predator minding their business in the middle of the ocean. The little sharks don't care about people whatsoever. Big sharks do not want to eat you. I'm still whole right now. I've never had any incidents. And if you speak for sharks, someday you will become a millionaire. Because Vin Diesel started his career talking about sharks, mostly incorrect information.
I've got something here with such fantastic detail, it's going to blow you away. Hit shark!
There you go. So that man is now a multimillionaire. Started off by defending and talking about sharks. So, folks, I think that's all the time I have. I'm happy. I know I have some questions waiting for me right here. But if you do have any questions, I'm more than happy to tell people up front and everyone else.